here. Pokemon. Hello everybody, Tyrone TG3 here. Pokemon Horizons Episode 9, Arrival in Paldea. It's actually kind of hard to believe we're already 9 episodes in. As of this week, we're going to be in episode 10. We'll literally be in the double digits in Pokemon Horizon. It's crazy to think about that for now. It doesn't even feel like it. I mean, I guess it's because the first 6 episodes were introduction episodes, but yeah. Honestly, I can respect the slow burn, though. This is a new series without Ash. It's completely without Ash. So I respect the fact that they're taking their time with it and they're not trying to rush. So I do like that. But before we get into episode 9, I do want to talk about something regarding episode 8, or at least the review I did of episode 8. So when I did episode 8, I received a noticeable amount of comments about this, where my one con was that they revealed Dot very early. And obviously I stated I want them to wait on Dot's reveal because I figured that would be a good connection between the character Liko and the audience, considering that Liko is experiencing everything for the first time, and this is a completely new series that doesn't have 26 years backing it like Ash's series. So her experiences become our experiences. We don't wind up distancing ourselves from either because we share the exact same experiences now. Her new ones are our new ones as well. And I had received more than one comment, not just on my reviews, but also on the Pokepod, the podcast that I'm a part of, that had this exact criticism on my comment, which was basically comparing Blaziken Man from the Pokemon XY series, who you don't know, that's Clement and Bonnie's father from the XY and XYZ series. His reveal was very early on in the series, shortly after saving Ash. But then they used that as their basis for the comparison and going, well, how can you let one pass but not the other? Well, one, Blaziken Mask was a character that, I mean, I think he was okay. I didn't think he was he was mostly just there as a central piece for both Clement and Bonnie and to save the citizens of Lumio City. He's a very separated character, too, a character that isn't going to be appearing in multiple episodes. He showed up in an amount of episodes, but he didn't show up as much as, say, the prominent characters. He's not a part of the main cast. He's not like Serena, Clement, and Bonnie. He doesn't show up in every episode, or at least a chunkable size of every episode, and he's not a part of a crew or anything like Dot is with the Rising Volt Tacklers. So I didn't think there was a need to compare the two characters because, well, there was no point. They're two completely different characters and by proxy two scenarios that are similar but are very different. Whereas Blaziken Man was a character who was a superhero that saved the citizens. He was mostly there as a cover-up on the character that is Clement and Bonnie's father. But that impact had nothing to do with the overarching series. Ash does wonder who Blaziken Mask is, but he never goes out of his way to try to openly figure it out or spend episodes trying to befriend him or try to get closer to him every day. He mostly just, once the Blaziken Mask situation is over in Lumio City at the Lumio's Tower with Garchomp, he just sort of ends it right there. Ash doesn't get curious about it. He only brings it up again every very seldom times. It wasn't enough to really warrant the same level of mystery that Liko has about Dot and who she is. And again, we've seen Dot as an audience member, but this unfortunately adds a disconnection because now Liko hasn't seen Dot. So sadly, we know what Dot looks like, which means we have knowledge that Liko doesn't. And sometimes that can be used effectively in storytelling if done correctly. But I would have been satisfied just hearing things that Dot has to say while having Dot still be a silhouette. Us being able to see Dot physically would have been the physical payoff for both us and Liko, being finally able to reveal who Dot's face is. Dot does wind up talking to Ludlow, so I'm guessing she isn't afraid of talking at least to Ludlow and the crew, and then Murdoch obviously is her uncle. But we see that happens in episode 9, so it is actually kind of weird too, because I believe in episode 9, Dot ends up leaving the ship to wash her needle thing outfit because it's gotten stinky over time, because she's been wearing it all the time and hasn't washed it. But that again leads to the question, if she's going out to do things like this, I don't know how long she's been Needle Thing for, but if she's been Needle Thing for a sizable amount of time, I see no reason as to why she wouldn't have been seen by multiple crew members at least more than once. But they do state that, like, I'm guessing she's seen everybody except maybe Liko and Roy at this point. There's a lot still to uncover about that, but I did want to at least address those comments that stated that we're comparing Needle Thing to Blaziken Man, where the idea is both of them are characters that hide their identities. But in that particular situation, one of them's hiding their identity and is continuously sought after episode to reveal something that we otherwise could have gotten a payoff in as a secret identity reveal face. Whereas the other one was a character that, yes, we know the identity of, but that doesn't really affect Ash in the overall long run of things. But to get to episode 9, I noticed for a while we have had no Team Explorers. And honestly, I like that. They don't need to be in every episode. I'm glad they decided to take their time with them. That way when they show up, they're a legitimate threat. If you run back to the well too many times, it definitely loses its value. I don't want Team Explorers to become a Team Rocket situation where when they show up, they can be pretty much gotten rid of within about like the last 3 to 4 minutes of an episode. I'm glad that they're spacing them out and taking their time. So kudos to Horizons for no Explorers. This episode mostly tackles Liko and her development with being at home. When Liko and the others get to her house, we thankfully see that it is not Ash, so we can finally put that theory to rest, and thank goodness. A lot of people on Twitter and in other social media sources got very upset when they saw that Liko's father wasn't Ash. Honestly, thank goodness. I'm glad. Pokemon... the idea of Pokemon is that anybody can do it. Anybody can catch a Pokemon and start their own journey and adventure and unfold their own stories. The last thing we need is for it to be holding attachment strings to another series for no other reason than my childhood or my gird. So kudos to that. Turns out that Liko's father is an artist. We've had a lot of artist parents in Pokemon animes, though. That's pretty funny. But yeah. The mother's still a mystery. We don't know who she is, honestly. They're holding that off for something. Again, Pokemon Horizons is definitely storing up a lot of its buildups, and I do want to respect that just because it gives us a lot more of a weighted, palpable story towards the later half. I know it's also going to be the lineup for a lot of like plot twist, but and unfortunately that's fanfic material waiting to happen. But it's a series. It's a fictional series. It's going to happen. I'll let it go and just sort of move forward with the story that we have in front of us. Turns out Sprigatito's acting kind of weird in this episode too, but the reason she's doing that is because she doesn't like the uncertainty that Liko has. Liko is back at home, and it's implied that basically means she's going to stay in Paldea and just make the commute back and forth from the academy, or just wind up doing her classes remotely. And honestly, I'm going to be real with you, this kind of bugged me a little bit, only because they made her an honorary Rising Volt Tackle member, only for her to debate on whether or not she's going to stay or leave. It's like, you made her a member for about 4 days, only for her to come back home, and it's implied that she'll be dropped off. Then what was the point of making her a member? It's so weird. I guess this, if you had to break it down in some way, I'm guessing Liko joined the Rising Volt Tacklers for their mission that they were on, but this is the episode where she decides whether or not she wants to stay on the Rising Volt Tacklers. This means that Roy technically joined the Rising Volt Tacklers as a permanent member before Liko, whereas Liko was a temporary member and then became a permanent member in this episode. It's kind of odd how they're juggling that, but I see what they did. It's very odd, but I do like that they at least tackled this now rather than her spend like it'd be like a Serena or a Dawn situation where it's like episodes have passed. Well, not Dawn, I'm sorry. It's like a Serena situation or another female traveling companion where they've traveled for so long, and then when they come back home, it's like, it's time to come back home. And they're like, no, I want to stay with Ash or the main characters or whatever and do what I need to do. So I'm glad they decided to tackle this now while they're in Paldea, rather than have her spend like a whole 40 to 50 episodes only to come back home and they're like, no, you're not doing this. It's too dangerous. So yeah, I do like that. I like that they finally, I like that the moment they got to Paldea, they went ahead and just got to the root of that and pulled it. The father isn't a bad father, though. He's not forcing her to stay. He literally just hasn't realized how much his daughter has grown up. And honestly, I like that approach. Pokemon doesn't need to continuously have the overprotective parent trope. I like that cliche because it's realistic, but at the same time, I like the idea that there are some parents in the world that literally just don't look after their children's growth as fast as they are, because kids, when they start growing up, they start making decisions that flow outside of the range of what their parents thought they were going to do. And I like that. Also, I like how considerate the father is. He lets Roy have some of his Pokemon illustrated books because he knows that Roy just genuinely loves Pokemon. So I like that. Roy's playing a backseat role in this episode, but I do like that he's still making some form of an impact in terms of, like, you know, the side stuff. But overall, good episode to really tackle Liko's character. Good episode to really solidify her goals and what she wants to do. Because here, she makes a decision that she's going to permanently be a part of the Rising Volt Tacklers. And when she does that, she battles a Lechonk. And once she starts being more sure of her actions, she's able to beat the Lechonk. Now, sadly, I do wish that fight was a little bit longer with Lechonk. I kind of wish they had, like, Liko giving some commands, but they're hesitant, so Sprigatito's attacks are weaker. But then when she finally, like, closes her eyes and it's like, no, this is it. I want to be a part of the Rising Volt Tackler family. Then she's more sure of herself. Then she gives commands, and when she does that, her attacks become sharper and more effective. And then we get the Lechonk getting beat in the fight. That would have been cool. Some people I know probably wanted her to catch Lechonk too. Lechonk looks really good in this series, by the way. I'm a little disappointed that she didn't catch it either, but honestly, I'm glad they're taking their time with each move. They don't have to move way too fast with each thing. So I'm pretty okay with her not catching it. So it's sort of an either or situation for me. She could have caught it, not caught it. Either way, the point was for her to get the battle. Plus, I believe if we're keeping tally of wild Pokemon, Liko's defeated Lechonk, while Roy has defeated Spearow, which I find kind of cool. Liko defeated a Pokemon in her native region, and Roy defeated a Pokemon in his. So, I don't know. It's just a small little detail, but I do like the fact that both trainers ended up defeating a wild Pokemon in their own respective regions. It's kind of cool to think about. Overall, episode does a really good job of solidifying Liko's position and role in the Rising Volt Tacklers. Again, glad we got that. And I think they made this episode as a buffer to save up for, like, the stuff that's going to be happening next episode. I didn't watch the previews for next episode, but unfortunately, I tell you guys what the title is for the next episode, which kind of gives me the idea that who's going to show up, sadly enough. And I try my best to stay away from Twitter spoilers, but the next episode is titled Nemona and Brassius. Now, Brassius, or is it Brassius or Brassius? Anyway, in his defense, the Liko's father already kind of built up to him, where he goes, oh, I know an artist and artisan who actually knows a little bit about the Black Rayquaza. And when he mentions that, I can only think of one artist in Paldea, and that's Brassius. That's like the artist, other than Liko's father himself. So I was like, oh, okay, that one's kind of set in stone. But the next episode's title literally starts off as Nemona and Brassius. It puts Nemona's name front and center. So there we go. For those of y'all who probably knew already or didn't know already or only watched my reviews or watched the episode then watched my reviews with no spoilers, the next episode of Pokemon Horizons literally has Nemona in it. I'm curious to see how they're going to handle her. It's really early to put her in, but they're correlating it to the video game at this point, so I see kind of why they're doing it. But with Nemona's showing up, I'm sure that means Arven and Penny are going to show up at some point. Honestly, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be pretty cool. If I had to give this episode's rating a score, definitely would probably give it about a 6. Not the strongest of the episodes. I will say it's okay, though. I think it's pretty good in terms of solidifying Liko role in the Rising Volt Tacklers. I just wish the battle was a bit more pressed on. And there was a lot of misunderstanding between the communications of Liko and her father. I kind of wish they had positioned it a little bit better to where the father was implying that she would stay home a lot and then have the misunderstanding. Whereas here, it's sort of like set in stone that she's coming home because that was their mission, which kind of puts it against the Rising Volt Tacklers. It's definitely something that makes you think so much to the point where you're like, why did they do this in this order? Why did they ever join the Rising Volt Tacklers only to drop her off 4 days later? Like, what's the point of putting a member on your team for 4 days? It's something you got to unfortunately chew over. It feels a little like the order got a little muddy. But either or, really good to see that they tackled Nemona's Nemona's in the next episode. My brain's going off. Really good to see that they're tackling Liko's role in the next episode. And with that being said, I will see you all then, everybody. Tyrone TG3 out. If you want to know where most of my time is spent, head on over to my Twitch channel to watch me stream games on Tuesdays through Thursdays, as well as Saturdays and Sundays. Also, be on the lookout on the PokePod, a podcast stream on my friend TG3's channel, as we discuss the latest Pokemon anime episodes, as well as anime, manga, video games, and other fun topics. That's it. Go do those other things. This video's over.